Hello. Can someone please confirm that I'm audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll just give people a couple of more minutes and then we'll start, okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay, we have 54 participants and some might have joined the live stream. So let's just go ahead and then get started. Um, I am audible and my presentation is visible, right?
Right,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
perfect. Okay, good morning,
Okay,
everyone.
sir.
Welcome to the
Good
online
morning, sir.
lecture organized by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. This class is for MA English, first year students. This is course 2, titled American Literature. Yesterday, what we did was we talked about what literature is, and then we talked about what American literature is, and we went through some of the major themes in American literature. Today, what we'll do is we will continue the discussion and then talk about Native American literature. We will first see who Native Americans are, and then we will talk about Native American literature. What are the major themes in that particular type of literature before moving on to the other topics? Okay, the objectives listed in the book are to learn the uniqueness of Native American literature and major themes of this type of literature, like I mentioned. And we will then talk about how religion played a role in literature before going into the colonial literature. I think it was Srujan or somebody who asked yesterday how religion impacts literature or how these two things are related. We will see that today. Okay. I'm not sure if he's in the class, but yeah, that's one of our objectives for today. We will see how religion impacts or how it impacted American literature. Okay, before we go into Native American literature, we have to understand who are Native Americans. Any idea who Native Americans are?
Early settlers.
Early settlers, yes. Sajid says early settlers. That's good. Yep. Any other definitions of who a Native American is?
No.
Okay, Native Americans, the popular definition is they are the indigenous tribes who were the original inhabitants of the US. Like Sajid said, they were the early settlers in the US. Okay. They are also called with other names. They are also called as American Indians. They are called First Americans. They are called Indigenous Americans. A very not preferred term is Red Indians. Okay, people don't use that word anymore because it's derogatory, but they can be called American Indians or Native Americans. Now, the story basically is you probably already know who Christopher Columbus is. He was a 15th century traveler. He was traveling through the ocean, and then, he thought that he reached Asia when in actuality he reached the US because he thought he reached Indies, as it was called at that time. He called the people Indians. So that is how they got the name Indians. So American Indians are not the same as Indians from India. Like we are not the same as American Indians. Okay, even though we share the same name, we are completely different groups of people. Anyway, Native American literature has a very rich oral tradition. I think I mentioned this a little bit yesterday. It has a very rich oral tradition, and then we will still call it literature going by, like we saw in yesterday's class. We said it's not just the written material that we can call literature, but it can be oral, it can be movies, it can be in any other form, it can be in audiovisual content, it can be anything. So Native American literature is extremely rich in oral tradition. And you can kind of sort of draw a parallel to this within India also. We have a lot of tribal areas in India where there is no, where they talk languages and dialects and other variants of language, which do not have a written script. So everything that is passed from one generation to another generation is through oral tradition. Okay. So Native American literature initially was a very rich oral tradition. Now, Native American, the problem with calling it Native American literature is Native American literature is not a literature. Like what I mean by that is it is not one literature. You can't put everything in Native American literature and then say this is called Native American literature. It's not that way. But it's a set of literatures because there are hundreds and thousands of Native American tribes, and every tribe has its own cultural traditions. Just like in India, we have hundreds and thousands of tribes, and then we have every tribe has different cultural traditions, and the literature of that tribe is literature of that tribe. You can't just put everything in one bucket and then say Indian tribal literature. You can't say that. In a similar fashion, Native American literature, you can't just consider it a literature, but then it is multiple literatures which are unique to each and every tribe. So that kind of sort of brings a interesting question when we even talk about Indian literature. Can we call something Indian literature or should we call them Indian literatures? Should we use the plural or should we use the singular? And then say everything written in India, everything written about the Indian experience and consciousness is Indian literature, or should we call them Indian literatures because we are diverse, we have multiple groups of people who are extremely different when it comes to culture. For example, the Southern Indian culture is completely different from the North Indian culture versus Northeastern. So should we call them Indian literatures or should we call them Indian literature? Any ideas?
Only singular pronunciations.
Okay, singular. Okay. But then if you say it should be called Indian literature, aren't we putting diverse literatures into the same name? Sridevi, I think that was Sridevi who said,
Yes, sir.
yeah. So Sridevi, okay, that's a good opinion. I'm just asking if you say that, then let's say we have a South Indian literature, okay, which is like Tamil literature or Telugu literature or Malayalam literature or Kannada literature, whatever it is, right? These
Yes, sir.
cultures are extremely, these Dravidian cultures are extremely different from the North Indian culture or Northeastern culture, right? You take from
Yes, sir.
Sikkim or Nagaland or Arunachal Pradesh. You take these places and then the literature there and the culture there is different, right? Yesterday, we
Yes,
discussed
sir.
that culture influences literature, right? And literature influences culture. So, and society. So if you're lumping everything together and then saying it is Indian literature, aren't you taking like two diverse things, I mean, or many diverse things and then putting it into the same bucket? Shouldn't we call them Indian literatures?
No, sir.
Okay.
Only singularly.
Okay. Why? Because there's unity in diversity and then
Yes, sir.
we are all
And
Indians.
all,
That's why it's Indian literature. Okay. Okay. Does everybody agree with Sridevi? Or do we have any other opinions?
Yes, I agree.
I think it can be used plurally also.
Yeah. Okay. Sajid says it can be used plurally also. And why are you saying that, Sajid? Is it because we are unique?
Yeah, unique. I mean, it is regarding one topic, then it can be used as literature. But if you are using different genres or different topics, then it can be used as literatures, as you said.
Okay. 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 That's a good observation. Do we agree with Sajid? Okay. Anyway, think about it and then see. Basically, it's basically
sir,
thinking
it
and then
may be
discussing.
singular or plural. We will call only literature, sir.
Okay. 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 You mean it can be plural, but then
Countable or
while
uncountable.
actually naming it, we will only name it as Indian literature. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Okay, let's go back to Native American literature. So coming to the Native American literature, themes like reverence to land are seen in most of the early Native American literature. Now, when I say Native American literature or Native Americans, these are not people who lived centuries ago and they don't exist now. Even today, in the contemporary society, we do have Native American tribes living in the US. Okay, these are not people who have just vanished somewhere in the previous centuries. It's not that way. They are still living now. Okay. So some of the themes are reference to land because these were land. They depended on the land and the nature. Nature was one of the major themes in early Native American literature. Like from a narrative perspective, ritual drama is a famous mode where a priest, they call him shaman. The picture on the screen, that's how a typical Native American shaman looks like. Now, this is a person who has access to good and evil spirits and then can talk to them and influence them. So, a shaman sings and then dances and chants and does these rituals which are rooted in nature. Okay, so he takes the help of air, water, light, sun, moon, these things which are in the nature, and then he does these chants and everything. So when you hear something like this, you might think, like I said, Native American literature is very old, it is very rustic, and then maybe centuries ago, but then it doesn't exist now. But the Native American tribes still, like I said, exist, and Native American characters are also portrayed in the works of very, very contemporary authors. Like a few years ago, Louise Erdrich, she was a Pulitzer Prize winner. She is from the Native American. She wrote about the Native American tribes. Another contemporary author is Tommy Orange, who also was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. So these people still write about these tribes. Okay. So many early Native American writers were political or autobiographical, okay, which was often also political because it was meant to persuade readers to push for better treatment of Native Americans. Now, like I said, if you remember the story, Christopher Columbus came and then, whatever happened. And these Native Americans were subjugated. The Native Americans were dominated by the settlers. And then, they were not given the rights that they deserve. So many of the Native American writers, early Native American writers, the writings were either political or autobiographical. Sorry. Like in the early 1900s, as these white American audiences became interested in reading about the lives and cultures of Native Americans, these writers began transcribing their stories of their cultures. Okay. Initially, they were writing only about how they were subjugated, how they were dominated by the white Americans. And then in the early 1900s, these American settlers started taking an interest in Native Americans. At that time, they started writing about their cultures, their procedures, their processes, and then, about the shamans and then okay. So major contemporary themes in the Native American culture, according to your book, I think it's listed in the book, are trauma and healing, obviously, because they were, dominated and then their land was snatched. So of course there will be trauma, there will be healing. So that's one of the major themes in Native American literature. Ceremonies, like I said, the shaman does these ceremonies. So the ceremonies are described. And one of the modern themes is mixed bloods. I mean, this again is a derogatory term, so I would suggest not to use this word. But mixed bloods are basically people of multiracial backgrounds, in particularly, European and Native American ancestry. So there's a Native American girl who marries a European man, or a Native American man who marries a European girl, and then, they have offspring, and these are mixed bloods. So that's another, their experience, and then and everything is also a very major theme. Okay, any questions so far?
Hello. They got independence in 1700s, huh?
No. Okay. The US got independence in 1774, July 4th. Okay.
Yes,
Native Americans are there. They are settlers.
Yes, US got independence in 1700s.
Yes.
And they wrote on Native Americans in 1900s. Right?
No, they didn't write it. Native American literature is much older. Okay. It was in oral form. Okay.
Oral form, written
Yes.
form, they started writing in 1900s.
No,
right?
not really in 1900. So they were writing before, but then the themes were different. Okay. The themes were autobiographical and political. Okay. In 1900s, what happened is, can I know your name?
Vanu.
Sorry?
Vanu.
Okay, I'm not hearing it properly. But anyway, what happened in 1900s is the settlers who have taken the land of Native Americans started getting interested in the Native American culture. So the books that were written in the early 1900s talked about their cultures. Until then, they didn't talk about it. Until then, they only talked about, political agenda and everything. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, sure. Okay, any other questions? Let me quickly check the chat. Anybody has shared something? Okay, no questions. Okay, let's move on to colonial period. Just like India was ruled by the British, US was also ruled by the British. Hold on for 1 sec. Okay. US was also ruled by the British for about 167 years or something like that. The first colony was in 1607, Jamestown, Virginia, and then in around like 1783 is when Britain accepted American independence in the Treaty of Paris. Okay, the US got independence on, like I said, July 4th, 1774 or 1776, I forget it. But anyway, in the 1770s. So before going into the literature of this colonial period, let's quickly go through the religious background of people of this time period, because the writings reflect the people's beliefs. Okay, whatever the people believe, that goes into their writing. Okay. So two very famous groups are the Pilgrims and the Puritans. You'll have to understand the difference between the Pilgrims and the Puritans. Both these groups are Protestants. So Protestants, by definition, are against the authority of the Pope and the priests. Okay, they go against the authority of the Pope. They don't recognize the authority of the Pope. And also they wanted to reform the church. Okay, I'm not saying they don't believe in church. They do believe in church. They just don't recognize the authority of the Pope. So both Pilgrims and Puritans were religious groups, and they both were kind of against rituals, choirs, music, etc. Like now, if you go to a church, you have a Sunday mass, and then there's choir going on, and then there's music going on, and everything. But these particular groups, religious groups, were against all this. Why? Because they thought these things distracted the people from the actual purpose of going to the church. The actual purpose of going to the church is to listen to somebody give a sermon. And then these people said, well, you go to the church and then, sing and dance and everything. It kind of sort of distracts you from the actual purpose. So that is why they were against it. They also opposed the hierarchy of the church because they didn't see any support for these in the Bible. The Bible doesn't talk about church. The Bible doesn't talk about hierarchy in the church. So they basically say Bible is the only authority because it's the word of the God. And everything, the hierarchical structure that was built after the Bible, we don't believe in that. Okay, that was their opinion. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the Pilgrims. Now let's talk about one by one. I mean, we'll talk about the Pilgrims first, and then we'll move on to Puritans. The Pilgrims, originally these were from England, and then they moved to Holland, but then they were afraid that they will be absorbed into the Dutch culture. They wanted to have a culture of their own. So they went on a pilgrimage to America. Okay, pilgrimage, basically, I think yesterday also we discussed pilgrimages going from one place to another place. So they wanted to be separate, and then they wanted to break away from the Church of England. So they went to Holland, but then they were afraid that, they will be pulled into the Dutch culture. So they left Holland, and then they went on a pilgrimage to America, which was a new land for them. So these are the wandering heroes that we are talking about. The Puritans, again, the next group of people are the Puritans. These people thought that the Church of England should be purified. That's why they are called Puritans. Okay. They basically said the Church of England is quote unquote corrupt. So that's why it should be purified. They believe that religion applies to all spheres of life. They basically said it is not just the church where you have to think about religion. You have to think about the religion when you're at home. You have to think about religion when you are doing something. You have to think about good and bad in all your deeds. So that's why they are called the Puritans, because they wanted to purify the Church of England. Okay. Both these groups were influenced by Reformation leaders. You will learn about Reformation and certain time periods in the British literature class. The American literature class doesn't really go into these time periods, but anyway, there are Reformation leaders, two Reformation leaders especially, Martin Luther and then John Calvin. One was a theologian, and then the other one is Calvin is a French pastor. So both these groups, the Puritans as well as the Pilgrims, were heavily influenced by these two people. And the Protestant Reformation was a religious reform movement in the 1500s. Okay, what has all this got to do with American literature? Why are we talking about, pilgrims, Puritans, and then what they are, and then what religion and everything? The reason why we have to understand what they believed in is because the literature of the colonial period is heavily influenced by Puritan beliefs and attitudes. Okay, it's heavily influenced by Puritan beliefs and attitudes. I will repeat what Puritans are, just in case you have missed my previous explanation. The Puritans are people who thought that Church of England should be purified, and they believe that religion does not apply only to the church, but then it applies to all spheres of life. Whatever you're doing in life, you'll have to think about good and bad and what the Bible says. That's what the Puritans believed in. And then I'm saying this has got to do with American literature because the literature of the colonial period is heavily influenced by Puritan beliefs and attitudes. We will see how it is influenced. Okay, there are very famous three Puritan authors. One is John Smith. Okay, he presents a vision of America as a new paradise to which the pilgrims and Puritans flock to. He says, it's a new land. We will create our own land. Don't remain in Holland because you will get absorbed in the Dutch culture. You will not have your own unique culture. You come to America, and then it will be a new paradise. Okay, he wrote about this stuff in a book called General History of Virginia. And this guy is John Smith. Okay, that's one of the very famous Puritan authors.
Did you say
Then,
Church of England?
Yeah, I said Church of England. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not talking about the Roman Catholic Church.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. That's why these are Protestants, Sajid. That's why these are not Catholic people. These are Protestants because they don't believe in the Catholic Church.
Got it, sir.
Huh. Okay, then we have an irony, actually. There was a first American, she's called the first American poet, but her name is Anne Bradstreet. She also depicted Puritan beliefs and attitudes in her work. Now, I'm calling this an irony because Puritans did not approve of women writers. Okay, Puritans said women cannot write, only men can write. Women's place is actually at home. Okay, that's what the Puritans believed in. But then here is Anne Bradstreet, who is a woman, who has actually written about the Puritan beliefs and attitudes. That's where the irony is. Okay. So she wrote something called the 10th Muse. I'm not sure if the book mentions it, but if you can just remember that Anne Bradstreet wrote the 10th Muse. Okay. Anyway, the third one that we're talking about is Edward Taylor. He was a Puritan minister who subscribed to John Calvin's preachings, and his poetry is kind of sort of similar to John Donne. Are you doing metaphysical poetry yet in British literature?
Not yet, sir.
Okay, not yet. Okay.
Yes,
When you come
sir.
to like 16th century British literature, you will talk about somebody called John Donne. He's written
Yes, sir.
wonderful
We had
metaphysical
in the
poetry.
offline classes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, good.
Yes.
So Edward Taylor's style of writing and everything kind of sort of mimics John Donne's style. It was all metaphysical. Okay. Okay, how do you answer these questions from this unit? One of the questions can be, what are the beliefs and aspirations of the Pilgrims and Puritans? The answer is directly in section 2.4.1 and 2.4.2 in your book. I'm hoping that all of you have the textbook. If not now, I hope you have collected the textbook. So the answer is directly there in two sections.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you be little bit louder, sir?
Oh, louder. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is everybody having the same problem, or is it just Pujita having that problem? Can everybody hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, sir.
Your
Yes,
voice
sir.
is your voice is clear, sir.
Yes, sir. Your voice is good enough.
Okay.
Your
Okay,
voice is
Pujita,
audible, sir.
just do me a favor and then check your, microphone or your head, like earphones or something that you're using. Okay. I will
Okay.
try to be louder, but then,
Okay, sir.
just
Thank
try
you.
to check from your side also. Okay.
Okay,
ठीक है.
sir. Thank you.
What was I talking about? Oh yeah, textbooks. If you have the textbooks, the answers are directly in 2.4.1 and 2.4.2. Then they might discuss the major themes of Native American literature. Again, that's directly in 2.2.1. You can add some of the modern themes also. The reason why I'm asking you to add modern themes is because the book, I'm not sure when the book was written, maybe 10 years ago or something. I'm not sure. But in 10 years, literature changes a lot. So there are modern themes that are not listed in the book. So you'll have to remember those and then try and then, make your answer better. Okay, we will move on to something called Age of Reason and Revolution. This is an extremely interesting age in the American history as well as literature. Now, is Srujan in this class? Srujan, if you are here, do you still have a question on how religion has influenced literature?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Otherwise, Western people, they won't come to India.
Yeah, you are echoing for some reason, but I think I heard yes. So that's good. Okay, let's move on. Age of Reason and Age of Revolution. Like we saw in the previous unit, in 17th century America, religion played a major role, not only in regular society, but also in literature. Now we are slowly coming to 18th century. In 18th century, that thing will slowly start changing. Okay, Age of Reason began in England. Again, you will talk about this in your British literature class. Age of Reason began in England in the 17th century and reached America in the 18th century. Okay, actually later part of 18th century. So 1750 to 1800 type of this thing. Let's talk a little bit about people who have influenced this particular age of revolution. We'll talk about three people in particular. One is Descartes, the other one is Voltaire, and the other one is Newton. Descartes is a French philosopher. He completely condemned authoritarianism. He said, you cannot be authoritarian. Okay? His most famous work is Meditations on First Philosophy. It talks about existence of God and immortality of the soul. Okay, he talks about that. And he was actually a rationalist. Now, what is a rationalist? Any idea what rationalism is?
Discriminating.
Or don't believe in religion.
Logical thinking, sir.
Logical thing,
Logical
yes.
thinking. Yeah,
Color
that's.
discrimination, sir.
Sorry, Sridhar, repeat that.
Sir, color discrimination.
No. That's racial, not rational. We are talking about rational, not
Own
racial.
knowledge. Rational means their own beliefs.
Their own beliefs, okay.
Not their
Yeah,
any other.
I think Assad's definition kind of sort of closely aligns to the most popular definition. It is more logical and it is not actually dependent on religion or anything. It's a method of understanding the world based on the use of reason. Okay, you can't just believe something just because somebody else told. Okay, it's more of reasoning. Okay, if somebody says, it's raining, you will have to question, why is it raining? How is rain formed? Is God pouring buckets of water from top, or there is evaporation and then it goes up and then clouds are formed and then the clouds get heavy and then the rain falls. This is reasoning, right? I mean, so understanding the world based on the use of reason as a means to attain knowledge is rationalism. Okay, so you have more logic and everything. And I forgot the name, but somebody else also said not believing just in religion. Okay, it's not that you won't believe in religion. It is basically not taking it on face value. Okay, just because religion says this, you won't do this. You will question, what is this? Why should we do this? That kind of stuff.
It should have a reason and logic behind
Reason
it.
and logic. Yes, exactly. Exactly. That is the exact reason why this age is called age of reason, because it requires reason. Okay.
So, sir, any this Benjamin Franklin, Thomas, any contribution to given to American literature and like developing the American culture?
Can you repeat that question?
These people, Benjamin Franklin and other writers, like they're given any influence in the people in America?
Yes, extremely big influence.
Yeah.
Extremely big influence. Yeah, we'll talk about Benjamin Franklin in a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, Descartes, we said, he was anti-authoritarianist, and then, he didn't like authoritarianism, and he wrote that meditations book. Okay, Voltaire was a French writer. He basically attacked, same as Descartes. He attacked on dogma, any principle or set of principles laid down by authority. If somebody says, let's say if you take the church says, this is right, this is wrong, and everybody follows that. Voltaire kind of questioned that. He said, well, just because the church says something doesn't mean it's true. You'll have to go back to the original source, which is the Bible. And if the Bible says it's true, then it's true. If it's not, it's not. Okay. Anyway, he kind of didn't like authoritarianism. Again, just like Descartes. Now, both these two people, both these people were responsible for growth of rational inquiry. Now, Newton, everybody knows who Newton is. He was an English mathematician and physicist of the 17th century. He talked about universe and then how universe works on rational principle and not as a mystery. Okay. Earlier, before the 17th century or early 18th century, people believed in creation, right? People only believed in creation. Let me put it that way. Okay. They didn't believe in evolution. Okay. Evolution, again, Darwin came much later, but Newton basically said, well, it's not just as big as a mystery as we thought. The way universe works can be explained on rational principles. Okay. So slowly, steadily, if you notice, people are going from religion towards science. Okay. But then these ideas reached America in the 18th century, like I said. Then Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Paine, Thomas Jefferson, all these people advocated reason through their writings. Okay. So like somebody was asking just now, how Benjamin Franklin was influential. He was influential in one major way, which is basically putting rationalism into the American literature. Okay, before that, there was religion that played a major role. And then in this age of reason, Franklin, Paine, and Jefferson, all these three writers and more writers have made a significant contribution by taking that religion's influence on literature and then changing it to logic and reason's influence on literature. Okay. Okay, one more idea that I'll have to mention here is John Locke's principle. He's a 17th century British philosopher. He came up with something called social contract theory. Okay, but this is his most famous contribution. Now, what does that say? It basically says we as people live together in a society with a social agreement between people that establishes moral and political rules of behavior. What that means is, nobody, let's say I am here, me as a person, I'll go out, and then if I see somebody, I say good morning or hi, hello, right? Nobody has told me, the government doesn't tell me that every time Ashwin goes out of the home, he has to tell hello or he has to say good morning. Okay. It is a social contract between two people or within ourselves. Okay. It's not something that the government tells me, saying that you go out and then every single morning you see people and then say good morning. Okay. So social contract theory is basically what it's saying in a simplistic way. It's saying we all live in accordance with, our moral and political rules of behavior. We decide as people. It also says that like kings and, governments and all, they don't have divine rules and all, should be formed as a result of social contract, basically. So what does that mean? If a government is formed and that doesn't respect people's natural rights, it should be replaced. That's what John Locke is saying. Okay, he's saying the government cannot be authoritarian. That's what he's saying. So rationalism, along with ideas like social contract theory, led to the American Revolution. We will talk about American Revolution later, but it was a people's revolution from 1765 to around 1791. Okay, so the rationalism and then John Locke's social contract theory, these kind of new ideas led to the revolution, which is why it's called Age of Reason and Revolution. Okay. Anyway, continuing on with John Locke, because of the social contract, the people also give up one right. If you really look at it, when I said about John Locke, you might have thought, oh, this is good, right? I mean, the government cannot tell us what to do and what not to do. But at the same time, you should also look at the flip side. Now, so according to the social, or because of the social contract theory, people also give up one right, which is the right to judge and punish other persons. Why? Because the right to judge and punish other people are given to the judiciary and the legal system, not us. So we give up that right. Okay. So now, how is this important? This is important because citizens began to see themselves at the same level as their leaders. Okay. They basically said, well, initial or before, in previous centuries, what happened was we as people looked up on God and then said, God is very great. And then we are his disciples or subjects or whatever you call yourself as. And then, we will never be able to reach them or reach the God. Now, slowly after reason and rationality came into picture, citizens began to see themselves as the same level as their leaders. So basically they said, well, I mean, we elect the leaders take decisions which are helpful to us, and then, thereby making our life easier and better. So people basically legitimize the government. It is not that the government legitimizes the people legitimize the government. Okay. Guys, 1 second. Give me a second. I just have to. Okay, I'm sorry. You can still hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me quickly go through the chat and then see if somebody has questions. Practice of action, religious beliefs, Sujata says, okay. Okay. Okay, moving on. The age of reason, basically what happened was it believed, or people in that age of reason, during the age of reason, believed that God exists and he created and governs the universe. They are not challenging that God doesn't exist. Okay, what they are saying is the God exists. He or she created the universe and governs the universe. But what they are saying is that same God has given humans the ability to reason. That is the reason why we have a brain. That is what they are saying. Okay, these are not my ideas. Okay, these are the ideas of people who believed in this kind of stuff in that age of reason. Okay, this is very important because they are not actually going against religion. They are saying it's fine that the God exists and created and governs the universe, but he or she has given us brain, which has rationality built into it. So we have the ability to reason. Now, if you remember, Puritans said God made all the decisions, right? In the age of reason, it changed to God gave human reasoning skills, and using that skill, decisions are made. Who is making the decisions? The human is making the decisions. Okay, how is he making the decisions? Using his brain. Where did the brain come from? It is given by God. You see the difference, right? Sri Salem, can you please mute yourself?
Oh, sorry, sir.
No problem, no problem. Okay, any question on what I just said? Because this is kind of a summary of what age of reason is. Okay, no questions, is it? Okay, thanks, Eva. The belief that universe...
1 minute, sir.
Yeah.
This romantic age and speaking about, and this also same in the age, like first pattern.
Yeah, we have not come till Romanticism yet, but you are right, actually. We are still in the 17th century, and Romanticism was around the end of 18th century in Britain. Okay. So yeah, I mean, all these ideas have influenced and then created the Romantic age. You're right.
was created from even in the
Yeah, it was created from the beliefs of rationality and then the age of reason.
But this 20th century we call it as romantic age.
The what age?
Present age. Can we call romantic age? No.
You mean the 21st century, the one that we're living in?
Yeah. Yes.
No, this is not the romantic age. According to the timeline given, it's not the romantic age. Yeah. Okay, going back to age of reason, the belief that the universe operated by rational formula that can be understood by any intelligent person. This was proposed by like Isaac Newton. He basically said, as long as you have a brain, you can understand the universe by a rational formula. Okay, so age of reason basically is a period of time that caused very much change in America. As you can see, there's a basic shift from religion towards science. So scientists were making discoveries that would lead to like new, quote unquote, new technologies, and politicians were inspiring new ways of thinking, and everything was changing at that time. Americans began to move away from old like superstitions and began relying on reason to find the meaning of life, both scientifically and spiritually. Both ways, they were trying to find meaning of life based on reason. And the people of this time trusted in like human potential more than anything else. They were like, as humans, we have this potential that we can tap into, and then we can make miracles happen through this human potential. And they wanted to become independent of the British who ruled over them. Okay. Coming to literature, writers of this time would express their thoughts through like majorly newspapers, essays, poems, and so on. Okay, these are more than fiction. During the age of reason, you see a lot of somebody's audio is on. Let me mute them. Prasad, I'm going to mute your audio, okay? Okay. So more than anything else, more than fiction, we had non-fiction written in this age of reason. Okay, and you can guess what are the major themes that people wrote on. One is reason can make a person's life better. That is one of the major theme. Then rational thought can establish order. Rational thought is what is required. It's not just the religion, it's not just the God, but it's the rational thought in human's brain. That is another theme. Then there are scientific and spiritual truths, not just, religious truths. And then, another theme is science should better humanity, basically. With the advent of science and finding out new things in science, it will be better for human beings. Okay, coming to Benjamin Franklin. Somebody was asking about Franklin. He was one of the founding fathers of the US. He was not a president of US, okay? Most people get confused. He was never a president of US. He was one of the founding fathers of US. He wrote this extremely interesting book called Poor Richard's Almanac. What it has is, it has a lot of proverbs that we use even today. You might have heard a proverb, a penny saved is a penny earned. Have you heard about that proverb? That is from Franklin. Okay, he was a man of enlightenment. I mean, he was from the Enlightenment period. So he basically embraced science, reason, natural human rights, free thinking, this kind of stuff. So he was an enlightened man, and he wrote the Poor Richard's Almanac. The next person we're talking about is Thomas Paine. His most work is called Common Sense. This is like a 47, 48 pages pamphlet in which Paine basically says, obedience to British will not solve the problem of the colonies. Basically, if you think of it, the US is still under the rule of British at this time. So basically what Paine is saying is, if you are obedient to the British, that is not going to solve the problems of America. Okay, he basically urged Americans to rebel. He says, come on, let's revolt. Okay, revolt, and then, rebel against the British colonial rule. And that is when you will solve problems. This is also evident in his work. There's another book that he wrote. He writes something about the rights of man, where he says that man is not bound to accept the rule of monarchy. That's just a choice. Okay, if somebody is ruling over you, you're letting them rule. It's just a choice. So you have a choice to revolt and then cause a revolution and then get your own rights. He also attacked, again, like everybody else in the age of reason, he also attacked religion. He calls religion as, I think I've listed, what is it? The source of the most detestable wickedness, the most horrid cruelties that have afflicted the human race. That's what he calls. That is very strong language that he has used against religion. Okay, this is Thomas Paine, not me or you. Okay. So he's calling it wicked. See, the problem with most of the writers is they highlight the problems, but they don't give you solutions. So here, does Paine give you solution? Yes, he gives a solution. He's calling religion wicked. But what is the solution? The solution, according to Paine, is reason and rationality. He says, leave religion, adopt reason and rationality, you will be in a better shape. Okay? Any questions on Franklin or Paine before we move on to Jefferson?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
You said about one proverb said by Franklin, that a penny something like that.
Yeah.
Can you please tell that again?
Oh, the proverb itself.
Yes.
Okay, a penny saved is a penny earned. I think, yeah, I mean, sometimes people use this proverb. It's a pretty old proverb, but
Can I say it in Telugu if I correct?
yes, yes.
రూపాయి రూపాయిని సంపాదిస్తుంది. Is that?
No, రూపాయిని సంపాదిస్తుంది కాదు. రూపాయి సేవ్ చేస్తే, my Telugu is not very good, but రూపాయి సేవ్ చేస్తే రూపాయి earn చేసినట్టు. Like if you don't spend a rupee, that automatically means you have saved it or earned it, basically.
Got you, sir.
Because if you spend it, it is gone, right?
Yes.
If you save it, you have earned it. That's what he means by that.
Yes, got you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let me very quickly see if there are any other questions on.
He is the first person to literature began in America. Anyone before?
So I'm sorry. Literature what?
Person. Sir.
Yeah. Yes, Prasad. I think your voice is echoing for some reason. Do you have like 2 screens open or something like that?
Hello.
Still echoing, but go ahead. That's okay. We'll try and understand what you're saying.
Excellent, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
He is the first person to literature started in US.
No, he's definitely not the first person, but he's one of the famous persons in Age of Reason and Revolution.
Who is the first person? Actually,
well, there is no first person actually. Nobody is given that title saying that he or she is the first person. But like I said, Anne Bradstreet is considered the first American poet.
Okay. He contributed to Thomas.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, Sujata says a stitch in time saves 9. Yeah, that is also one of his proverbs. Penny saved is a penny earned. Yes, it is wise to save money. That's right. Okay. The other writer of this period is Thomas Jefferson. He drafted the Declaration of Independence, and he also served as the US president. He wrote more than 25,000 letters, and these letters kind of depict the American life and ideals and what Americans should do, that kind of stuff. Okay, we'll very quickly talk about Freneau and then move forward. Freneau is called the father of American poetry and the poet of American Revolution. Why? He combined neoclassical forms, and then he also brought back classical forms and characteristic of art and romantic tendencies. He had romantic tendencies also. I mean, romantic tendencies in his poetry, which are nature, experience, melancholy, and that. Somebody was talking about romantic age also. Anyway, the way you have to look at this whole age is, by the end of 1700s, the Puritan influence on America began to decrease. That we know. Okay, by end of 1700s, the Puritan influence basically means the influence of religion on America began to decrease. Writers used reason and logic instead of teachings of the Bible to support their arguments. Now, people had come from all over Europe to the American colonies. They didn't come from one place, right? They came from all over Europe to American colonies. But were the colonists happy overall with the situation they were in? Of course not. They were not happy. Okay, which is why, Age of Reason and Age of led to the age of revolution. Anyway, types of works during this time period, you can guess is most important pieces of literature were political documents, speeches, pamphlets, short and concise works that are basically argumentative kind of essays, and non-fiction, basically. Like I said, non-fiction was far more influential than fiction in this age. Okay. Sorry. So how has writing changed in this age? Writing was less private and religiously based. It was very less private. It was becoming public day by day. And the writing came away from the plain style and became full of, colorful language. They used metaphors, they used similes. So it changed in that way. And then it was influenced, of course, by the Revolutionary War and the American spirit, basically. Okay. Now we are still in late 18th century, early 19th century America. Okay. However, in the age of this Romanticism, which comes after the age of reason and revolution, writers started to break away from the restrictive rules. Okay. Then they began to experiment. They began to talk about the American landscape, the lakes, nature, oceans, all these things. We will see two of the writers of this period. One is Washington Irving and another is James Fenimore Cooper. Okay, both of these are listed in your book. Very important writers and very important from an exam point of view also. Okay, Washington Irving and James Fenimore Cooper, both are extremely important American writers. Anyway, Irving was one of the first American writers to get international fame. Okay, at that point of time, there were not too many people who got international fame from America. He was actually first in many things. He was not just the first international fame guy, but he was also first in many things. He was the first modern short story writer. He was the first great belletrist. Do you know who belletrist is? Belletrist is a person who writes essays, particularly on artistic criticism and that kind of stuff. He was the first belletrist. He was also the first biographer. He wrote the biographies of Columbus and George Washington. And he was one of the first American authors to, like I said, get fame in Europe. He's most known for his short stories, like The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and other short stories like that. Now, while Irving was very famous, he also had critics. In the next class, we will talk about this extremely influential author called Edgar Allan Poe. He's one of my personal favorite author. We will talk about Edgar Allan Poe in the next class. But Poe basically, when talking about Irving, felt that Irving should be given credit for being an innovator. He also felt that, Irving's writing was often unsophisticated. He says, Irving is overrated. Yes, his writing is not that stylish and, it's kind of mediocre. And then some critics, the biggest criticism against Irving was that he matches the British sensibilities than American. He being an American, he should have written about American sensibilities. But then, the critics said he was aligning to the British sensibilities more than the American sensibilities. Okay. Cooper, again, like I said, one of the major people that you'll have to remember. His major theme was destruction of American wilderness by advancements of civilization. Now, this guy had an obsession with one thing, which is America has this extremely good wilderness, forests, land, nature, oceans, seas, lakes, and everything. Okay. Now, he was bothered that all this is being destructed by the advancement of civilization. Okay. Wilderness or wildness symbolized an innocent and simple way of life for him. Now, this is Fenimore Cooper I'm talking about. Okay. He basically said, it symbolizes an innocent and simple way of life if you have wilderness and wildness. Now, contrast between civilization and nature is a very common theme in Cooper's writings. Some of his writings are listed on the screen, but the most famous one is the Leatherstocking Tales. That is his most famous. It's a series of 5 novels that are set primarily in 18th century New York area. Now, what makes him different from others is that he did not pay sufficient attention to technique and revision. Okay, he just wrote whatever he got into his head. That's it. His plots are like super improbable. Characters are very flat. Do you know what are flat characters and round characters? Did anybody explain what flat and round characters are?
No, sir.
Okay.
Flat characters, they won't change. Round characters, they keep on changing their characteristics.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, Yasmin gave a very good definition. Flat characters don't change all through their novel or work. Round characters are more, active, and they change from one scene to another scene. Okay. So Fenimore Cooper's characters are always flat. Dialogues are artificial. So if his stories had so many, you know, mm, he was a very great author and then very famous author, but then he also had this criticism saying that he just wrote in very unsophisticated way. Okay. But then you will have a question, if his stories had so many, bad things or, weaknesses, why did he succeed? He only succeeded for one reason, because he was a good storyteller. Okay, he wrote across themes. He wrote about Indian romances. Indian again is not our Indian, the Native American Indian. He wrote about maritime fiction. He wrote about political controversies. He wrote about a lot of stuff. He had variety in his works, and he was an extremely good storyteller. That's why he became famous. Okay. How do you answer questions from this unit? What are the contributions of Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson? Again, it's a straightforward question. Section 3.2.3 and 3.2.4 in your book, you will have the answer for this question. And write a short note on age of romanticism. Okay. You can also list two authors that we discussed here, Washington Irving and James Fenimore Cooper, and then talk about age of romanticism. So usually if you go by the history of how the questions are asked in the exam, they have been asking about write a short note on age of romanticism, or write a short note on age of reason and revolution, or write a short note on this age or that age. So that can be one of your short answer questions. So it is always good to find out what the major characteristics of a particular age are. And then if you can write those things in the exam, then you will score better marks. Okay. Let's move to what American novel is very quickly. What time is it? Okay, we still have 20 minutes. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you be more particular? I mean, can you highlight the main important points from each topic?
Okay, repeat that. I'm not sure I understood you. What is
I
that?
mean, can you highlight the topic? Can you highlight the main important point from each topic, sir, so that we can go through that point easily?
From an exam perspective, is it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, see, that's the problem, Pujita. The problem with highlighting something is basically saying one thing is more important than the other thing, right? The book from B.R. Ambedkar Open University is made in such a way that it has only the important things. None of your chapters talk about any of the unimportant things at all.
No, actually, what happened is some of them didn't get their textbooks from the university.
Oh,
So
okay,
that is
okay,
the
okay.
problem. So we want to focus on the main topics and main thing so that we can prepare.
Okay.
Sir, she told me that good questions. Actually, the books is very limited and concise.
Yes.
Starting problem is there. Every concept, the starting problem is very difficult for us.
Okay. Okay. I see. I understand the problem of not having the book.
The books are very boring sometimes reading.
Okay. Yeah, I see what.
Actually, we are seeing the main points. We are note downing some important points by returning or from test papers. So
Okay. Okay. I see. I see what you're saying. So I will try and highlight the important points from the next class. But I would suggest you to ask the admin or whoever you reach out to get your textbook as soon as possible, your course book. Okay, that is very useful for the exam.
Because if you're speaking only, we understand the concepts more. But continuing on some of the books is not relevant.
Right. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's go ahead with today's class. And before going into what an American or looking at how an American novel is structured and how it's done, we have to define what an American novel is. What is an American novel? Is it the first novel written by an American? It is a novel written by American themes or characteristic American themes and techniques. What is an American novel? As long as an American writes it, is it an American novel?
No, sir.
Okay, it's not. So when you look at a book and then say this is an American novel, what actually are you looking at in that? What makes it an American novel? I agree with you. It is not the novel written by an American. So I totally agree with you. So,
It's
but
about,
what is it?
sir,
The
it is
content in the
about the
book.
themes of America, American lifestyle, American people's lifestyle, etc.
Okay, you're echoing. Did you just say American lifestyle? Is that right?
Means American people's nature, their way of living, and their approach towards the problems of life compared with other countries' people,
Okay.
and themes taken up by the writers based on their lives, Americans.
Okay,
The
perfect.
writer
Yeah.
can be from any country.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you're basically saying as long as it is an American theme, then it's an American novel. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes,
About the
yes.
people, the consciousness of people, their
Yes,
experiences.
sir. That is a word I couldn't get. Consciousness of the people. Thank you.
Mostly they have rich culture, sir. The novels and they're always.
See, Prasad, the thing is, America has a rich culture, so does India India also has a rich culture, right? Every country has this rich culture where, it gets ignored over a period of time. After a period of time, we kind of sort of tend to forget the culture or the culture changes, right? Culture is not a static thing. So it keeps changing. As the time changes, the culture also changes, right? Now, if you talk about Indian culture, 100 years ago, if you ask somebody what Indian culture is, they would give you a different definition. And then if you ask your colleagues or friends or acquaintances or somebody about what Indian culture is today in the 21st century, you will get a different definition, right? So I agree with you. America does have a rich Indian culture, and then it has been,
society.
yes, it has been portrayed in their novels. Okay, yeah, good. So some of the early authors of American novel are listed on your screen. Their dates and details of their works are listed in Unit 4 of your course book. So we won't be going into those now because those are just like, Prasad said, those are boring details. You can always look at the dates and everything in the book. Okay. One very important concept that we need to understand here is the difference between romanticism and transcendentalism. Okay, these are two words which are very important for you to understand the genesis of American novel. It is romanticism versus transcendentalism. What is romanticism? Romanticism is not the romance that we're talking about. Romanticism underscores the importance of emotions and freedom over intellectual growth. Basically, they say you have a brain, you are extremely smart person. That all doesn't matter. What is more important is your emotions and freedom, and this kind of stuff is more important. They believe that everybody should follow what they're feeling. Okay, not somebody saying something. Okay. Transcendentalism, on the other side, draws inspiration from beyond or external to human perspective, or even beyond reasoning and normal traditions. What does that mean? They go beyond the human limits. Transcendentalism is beyond human and it's external. Romanticism is basically, it doesn't heavily emphasize the power of God as a center of universe, romanticism. Transcendentalism strongly believes in God, divination, and the truth of miracles and all these things. Transcendentalism believes. Romanticism doesn't heavily emphasize on the power of God as a center of universe. They don't say that, God is the center of universe. They don't believe in that, romanticists. Transcendentalists do believe that there's God, there's divination, there's truth of miracles. Okay. Romanticism had a dark view of humankind and expressed a kind of, the human nature is expressed in a weird way. We will see one of the examples in the next class, which is Poe's, like I said, the story, The House of Usher. We will talk about it in the next class when we talk about the short story, American short story. That is romanticism. They had a very dark view of humankind. Transcendentalists, on the other hand, believed in essential human goodness. They basically said, if you are a human, you're good. If you are a human, you know what is right versus wrong. Okay. To transcendentalists, the divine was something internal. They said divinity is inside you. God is not outside. He's inside. He or she is inside you. While romantics saw the divine as an exterior force. Okay. Romanticists said, no, God is not inside you. God is outside somewhere. Transcendentalists said they are internal. Anyway, Edgar Allan Poe and Nathaniel Hawthorne were the They belong to the Romanticist tradition. Okay, these two authors. Transcendentalism literature basically talks about good versus evil. It actually borders on exaggerating good versus evil. They are obsessed with good, they're obsessed with evil, and then the differences between good and evil. We're talking about people like Ralph Waldo Emerson when we talk about transcendentalists. Emerson was an extremely famous transcendentalist. Okay. Okay, there is a table on your screen. Can you confirm that you're seeing the screen, please? I'm sorry, I forgot to ask.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's a very quick table on your screen. It talks about the comparison of romanticism and transcendentalism. I would suggest somebody take a screenshot of this and then you can send it. I think you have a WhatsApp group or something, right? So you can share it in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
This will have a very quick overview of what is the difference between romanticism versus transcendentalism. Okay. In different comparison parameters. Okay. How did it originate? What is the period? What is the style of writing? What are the major principles and how did they deal with religion? How did they deal with reason and then inner values? I will only look at two of these, okay, because we've been talking about religion and reason a lot in this class. Let's continue that and focus, and then I'll talk about religion and reason and how they are different in romanticism and transcendentalism. Everything else you can look at the screenshot, and then if you have any questions, you let me know in the next class. Okay, religion, romanticism basically says it did not stress on religion. It focused mostly on human nature. What is human nature? Human nature is basically what you are as a human, but what you are as a human is not static. I, as a human, I am different from, like, let's say Pujita as a human, or Asad as a human, right? Or Prasad as a human. We are all different humans. Now, is are all our natures the same? Probably not, right? So it itself is not a static thing, but there is always something which is common in human nature. All of us think that, probably we think stealing is bad. All of us think that, hitting somebody in the face is bad. Or all of us think, giving or helping somebody in need is good. These things are not negotiable for us, quote unquote, right? We all believe in these things. So that is what the human nature they're talking about. It's mostly focused on human nature, which is the consequences of human behavior. And then, how you behave basically gives you either sin or guilt or whatever it is, or pleasure, basically. When you help somebody, you feel good. When you go and hit somebody in the face, you feel bad, basically guilty. That is what romanticism talks about. Transcendentalism was based completely on religion. Um, the belief was embedded in the knowledge of God being present in all things. Okay, they're not saying God is there only sitting outside and then looking at you from the skies. They are basically saying God is there in everything. Okay, reason-wise, romanticism was created as a reaction to outward beliefs. I think I mentioned this before. It's about outward things. It is not internal. Transcendentalism was inspired by romanticism and was created as a reaction to the practice of religion. Okay, this is self-explanatory. Okay, did somebody take a screenshot? Can I move on to the next slide?
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir.
Oh, perfect. Very quickly, let me check the chat if somebody has questions, okay? Okay, no questions so far.
I send a question, sir.
Yes.
And how long it will take and prepare this chapter, American literature part 2.
Well, if you read a page each day, then it shouldn't even take any time, actually. I mean, that's what I suggest to students. Read at least one page of, every single book a day. One page will take you, what, 5 minutes or something. That's it, right? Basically, you will have to understand, as we progress in the course, Prasad, we will look at stories, okay? We will look at drama, we will look at poetry, we will look at short stories and everything. Those stories you will remember because these are stories, right? I mean, we are all very good at remembering stories. The answer should be in a way where you will have to talk about introduction. Like this class is totally an introduction class to Age of Reason and Age of Romanticism and Age of Revolution, okay?
Sir, I have doubt.
Yes.
Is there literature in India like American style is there? Why? Actually, it is a birth. Americans, they have a good literature.
Okay, can you repeat that? You're asking if India has a literature. What is the question?
Actually, Indians also literature.
Yeah.
India also has literature, poets and many people.
Yes.
Why America has such a big
It doesn't. See, that's what I was trying to tell you. American literature is only one part of the world literature, right? We cannot call American literature great and Indian literature not great, right? Indian literature is great in itself. American literature is great in itself. British literature is great in itself. That is why we are studying all these literatures separately, not together, right? What happens when we study these literatures separately is we understand what are the themes that each of these literatures are having. Okay, which is what makes each of these literatures great. Is that what your question is?
Actually, it is some people have their own birth. They cannot study, read everything,
right?
Much educated, but they have a literature strength. How it depends upon their nature, no? By birth.
Yes.
Can you believe that?
Yes, of course. If you see, you make a very good point, but then this point is what we discussed yesterday and today. If you look at oral literatures are that way, whatever you said. They are born and brought up in tribal areas mostly, where people don't have access to education, right? If you look at, I don't know where you're from. If you look at the Telangana or Andhra states, if you look towards the tribal regions, they don't have access to education as much as people in Hyderabad do, right? But that doesn't mean they don't have any literature. They do have vast amount of literature, which is, again, if I can use the word, it's still great. I do, yes. Definitely, there are people who don't have access to education, but then they are extremely good at literature. And especially, this is true when it comes to oral literature. That's my point. Okay, moving on. Who were the pilgrims? We've discussed this. Can anybody tell me who the pilgrims are?
Who moved from Holland to Holland?
Prasad, can you go on mute? I can't hear Yasmin properly. Okay, yeah, Yasmin, go ahead.
Yeah, these are the group of people who migrated or who were on pilgrimage from Holland to America.
Okay, perfect. What is the age of reason? When did it start in the US? Again, we discussed this, so no need of actually looking at it. Okay, give me 1 second. I just have to take a very quick screenshot.
So, who is the father of short stories? Is it Irving or Poe?
Well, it actually depends on who you ask, but then it is a popular belief that it is Irving. Okay, but Poe is one of the most or the greatest short story writers of not just American literature, but anywhere. But then you're actually asking the wrong person because I'm a great fan of Poe. So I will always say it's Poe. But the book says it's Washington Irving. Okay. Okay. Good. Let me close this. Okay, perfect. Okay, any more questions on Age of Reason, Age of Revolution, or anything that we discussed today or yesterday? If you don't have anything, then let us take a pause here for today and we'll continue in the next class. In the next class, we will move to Unit 5 of the course book. We will talk about Edgar Allan Poe and his short stories. Then we will talk about 19th century American fiction. We will talk about Herman Melville's Moby Dick and Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn. If time permits, then we will talk about 20th century fiction and look at, again, two extremely good authors, Hemingway and Faulkner. Okay. But before I let you go, yesterday we had a small task. Did anybody look at what's the difference between story and plot? This is a task from yesterday. Did anybody get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, Yasmin, go ahead. What is the difference between story and a
Plot is a sequential. It has sequential events. So one is interconnected with another one, and plot is the internal part of story. Story. Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. So it's an internal part of story. Story constitutes plot, characters, and the setting and everything.
Okay. Can you give an example?
Hamlet,
Okay.
Julius Caesar.
Okay. No. I mean, between a plot, okay, Hamlet. But
So
yes, Sridevi.
Sir, story is a simple thing, sir. What is the right thing going on? But plot is a necessary things we add, sir, like a pre-planning, how to do, what to do and what not to do. Like,
Okay. Okay. Sujata says events within the story of play. Okay. No, what I'm looking for is okay. Let me put it as a question, and then let's see if we can get to the answer. Okay. You every work that you look at, especially fiction, will have events, right? One thing happens after the other, then something else happens after that one, then something else happens after that one, right?
yes, sir.
What is this sequence called? Story or plot?
plot.
Story.
Event is plot, sir.
Mm, okay.
Story, sir. Story.
Story. Okay.
Story
Sony
is
says
linked.
story.
Story is linked to one another.
Sir,
Story is
sequence of
linked.
events
It's a
is
plot,
plot.
sir.
So, for an example, a girl went to a jungle, met a witch, and find a way to the home. Is the story in a simple way? In a story, we read it once, but a plot is like a girl met a witch, and then what happened? How she came to a jungle, how it happened, and everything. When it is said, then it's a plot.
Perfect. Perfect
Sequence.
example. Yeah, I like that example really. I mean, that's very well put. Okay, so the sequence of events is okay. Zeba says there's an interrelation in the story. Yes, that's true. Sequences events, that's true. Bharti, you're right. What I said was a story, not the plot. Okay, good. We will try and then talk about story and plot again next week when we meet. Your next class is on next Saturday, is it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. If you don't have any other questions, then I will let you leave for today, and then I will talk to you next week, same time.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank
much.
you, sir.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. You should leave.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Happened,
మ్యూట్ లో పెట్టానో లేదో ఇది ఒక క్లాస్ ఉంటుంది మళ్ళీ ఇప్పుడు
క్లాస్ అయిపోయింది నిహారిక గారు.
వచ్చేది అందులో